Hello, everyone, and welcome to In-House Counsel Insights, where we bring together in-house attorneys in different industries and practice areas to share their experiences and their tips with you guys. So on today's show, I've got Paul Leitner. He's Deputy General Counsel of Life360, which has products that you may be familiar with, such as Tile, and they have other products too. I know I've got a Tile in my wallet. So thanks, Paul. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So I always like starting with a little background. So what was your background before going in-house?
I started at a larger law firm in their securities and corporate group, doing a lot of IPOs, security regulation filings, 10Ks, 10Qs, doing a lot of diligence for M&A. Moved on to a kind of a medium, smaller firm to just branch out and do more corporate work generally and commercial work, which actually I think helped me to broaden my experience, which allowed me to move in-house a couple of years later. Got my first in-house gig just doing mostly like service contracts, and then kind of expanded from there, doing a little bit more here and there, employment issues and things like that. And I've bounced around a little bit, landing at HPE for about 5 years, getting more technology-focused contracts under me, mostly just doing contract work there, commercial contract negotiation, doing some partnerships and things like that, helping to get into couple different areas. And then most recently moved over to Tile, which was purchased by Life360. And the conjoined company's been here about a year and a half now, doing mainly commercial contracting, but then also advising in marketing, product, customer care, complaints, all sorts of things.
So you have a broad range of experience, a lot of different jobs there and different types of companies, but doing commercial contracts, like you said. Is there like a hot issue today that we could chat about in the contract world?
Well, I think the biggest issue right now that's just pervasive and in every contract we do basically is privacy. I mean, it's an aspect that it touches every part of every transaction and every product that we work on. So yeah, privacy is definitely the biggest topic.
Okay, and I've heard other in-house attorneys preach privacy too. You're just one more adding to it. So if I am an attorney in-house, how do I go and learn about all these privacy issues?
Well, I mean, there's certainly a ton of resources. I think any big law firm, you're going to see white papers on it. There's the good thing too is that it's constantly developing. States are releasing their own regulations, countries and regions are releasing their own. So things are changing, things are coming new. So everyone's kind of learning about it at the same time to some extent. I've learned about it the most through the contracting that I do, the commercial contracting. In the last few years, GDPR is required now that you have data processing agreements or data processing addendums in place when you are transferring data across borders in some cases. And so doing those, having to start those kind of negotiations helped me to kind of dig in and go, why are we doing it? What's the important stuff? What do we have to protect for? And so doing that's kind of introduced me to it. And then there's all sorts of different rabbit holes you can go down from there.
Sounds fun. So I'm going to change gears a little bit. Can you, being in-house, you're part of the cost center. You're not producing revenue typically for the business. So can you tell me how, as an in-house attorney, can you add value to the business?
That's a good question. So really, I think the best way we can do that is to understand the business's goal. For example, the team you're working with, like marketing, they come to me and they're like, we want to run this new promotion or coupon, or we're releasing this new product, and here's what we want to tell customers. Do we have to add anything to it? And they already have like a design laid out of what they want it to look like. And they're really good at, presenting the information in the way that grabs the viewer's attention. But, I could just slap on, say at the very top, you have to say this whole paragraph of stuff. And that's really the best way to protect us, to make sure it gets across. But that doesn't really accomplish what they want, because at that point, all the users are going, I don't want to read that. And they just close it, right? So understanding what they're trying to get across and going, okay, well, we have this blurb we want to say, but let's look at the design together and figure out the best way to integrate it without killing your design or your goal of what you're doing. And I mean, that goes through any of the different things you might work on, but just really going, what are we doing here? What's the product? What's your goal, who you're trying to reach? And then say, okay, well, here's the things we need to do, and let's figure out the best way to do it together.
That's great advice. And how do you learn what the company is trying to do? So like participating in other meetings, other department meetings, or talking to people, or I guess you just pick it up along time. But it seems like, the in-house attorney has to get aligned with the business unit and the business's objectives.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so you can do it over time. That can take a while, just going, I'll pick it up here and there. And I think maybe in my earlier positions, that might have been how it happened. I'm just, working on these contracts. And as these questions come in, I'm learning a little bit, going, oh, this provision, like, why would we do that? Oh, I've learned one little piece now. But as you get further along, I realized, setting up recurring meetings with the heads that, you're supporting from these different units, and just having, it's like, strategically, what are you guys focusing on this quarter? Like, how can I best support you this quarter? What are the failings of our group in the past, or something like that? And just hearing them out and saying, like, what's important to them? What are they looking at? And then also sitting through meetings going, I don't need to know how you're coding all this stuff, but only like what you go through when you're creating this new aspect of the app or the website that we're working on. And most of it goes over my head, but to some extent I go, okay, I think I understand what we're doing here a little bit better. So yeah, you have to sit through some things that, a lawyer might not otherwise sit through, but it's kind of cool because you get to learn the product a little bit better.
Let's thank you, Paul. Let's talk a little bit about remote work, because I noticed that you are sitting in your home office, right?
I am, yeah.
Okay. How long have you been working from home?
So I've been fully remote ever since I started working at Tile, now Life360. So it's been almost a year and a half, maybe a little over a year and a half. At HPE, they were kind of flexible, and you'd be sometimes in the office, sometimes out. But this one was completely remote. In fact, I think that's probably one of the good things that came out of the pandemic. More companies are open to the idea of remote work. They've become very comfortable with it. They've realized, we have these computers and this technology that allows us to meet like this, almost face to face, and we don't have to be in the same place. And so I think it helps the companies because they can open up their searches for, I need a lawyer. And that doesn't just have to be in Houston or in Texas. It can be anywhere technically in the world, but you could say anywhere in the US. And now that's the only way I was able to actually get this job, because they opened it up to a remote position, and it's been great.
Absolutely. I think it totally helps from a recruiting perspective. There's other benefits too, but the IT companies have been doing that for a while, not limiting themselves to, geographic half hour from this office, and people have to live there. Right. So let's dive into that a little bit more, because I think you might have some unique perspective to add. I think, there's this debate on, work in the office, pure remote work, which you're doing, and then just kind of this hybrid, which sounds like you did at HP. Yeah. So, without getting into confidential information, however you want to answer this, and this isn't a shot on anyone, but do you have a preference, or do you see any pros, cons to working each way, or does it just depend on the company? I just wanted to hear some of your thoughts there. So it sounds like you have a lot of experience in that arena.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I love the flexibility this gives us. I have young children. To the extent I need to run somewhere and get to pick them up or something like that, I'm minutes away from their school. So I mean, just as general life, level, it's very, very helpful to have that kind of flexibility. There's things that I'd love to change though too. I mean, I really enjoyed driving home, turning on some music and kind of just coming down from work too. I don't have that anymore. Now I literally turn it off, turn around, and there's a kid right in my face immediately. So I do miss that. So I have to figure out other ways to decompress, get outside, take a walk, and be like, let's go walk the dog, together, and just get away from the computer. I think that's another thing. I mean, it's very easy to like eat your breakfast and go sit in front of a computer and never do anything else in the day. So you really have to kind of manage your own time and kind of say, I need to step away. I need to do this, and just kind of, so you can retain that focus and productivity. But I miss the water cooler talk too, to be honest. I mean,
Mm,
I really have to focus on like trying to like set up lunches from time to time, go out and get out
mhm.
and, see people. But I think that at least the company I work for now, they really value getting people face to face. So we were having like face to face circle ups, is what they call them, but basically retreats for the company twice a year, get everyone together for a week. And those are really valuable. I mean, I think that's what any company considering a lot
Yep.
of remote time, I think it's still good to get people together, and because you just connect better and you get to, meet everyone on a more personal level.
Absolutely. It needs to be a little more intentional rather than just bumping into someone in front of the water cooler. So, just a little bit more on that, because you talked about the importance of getting together with the business unit and learning things. So does that involve you being a little more proactive, or do you jump into standing meetings, or, how does that work when you're missing that water cooler aspect?
Yeah, you definitely have to be more intentional and more proactive. For example, our products teams have monthly meetings where they talk about, here's what we did this last month, here's what we're focusing on next month. Most of it is very technical, over my head to some extent, but I'm like, can you include me in those? And to the extent I can, I'll sit in. And legal things pop up from time to time. They're like, hey, we're going to be doing this. And someone will go, wait a second, that I think you probably need to talk to legal. And it's kind of good for me to hear it right
Right.
away and understand what the background is, and even maybe kind of redirect them where they're, right then and there, as opposed to like them going along, a few weeks into doing some work and then going, actually, we need to try to, take it a different way. So I think we both find it very helpful. But yeah, it doesn't just happen usually like that you just learn, meet the people and get to know those product teams. Unless they have a question, they're typically not just loitering around Zoom trying to connect with you. So yeah, you have to be very intentional.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I've got two more questions for you.
Okay.
One thing can be opposites, right? I'm going to ask what your favorite thing about being in-house is. And that's not now necessarily, but your whole career in-house. And then what's your least favorite thing? I think people always paint it as this 100% rosy picture. And it isn't necessarily is, right? It's just kind of this thing. And so what's your favorite and least favorite?
Okay. My favorite kind of goes off of being in a law firm too. I mean, so when I was in a law firm and I supported clients, I would help them form a partnership or land a big transaction. And then I wouldn't know what happened. Like I'd have like scrambled enough information to complete the task. And then it's like, I wonder if that went well. I wonder if that's what they want. And you never really know. And I feel like I wouldn't talk to them again until they had another legal issue and they came to us. And so you kind of start forming these relationships and then back off. I'd learn a little bit about business and you go jump to another one. And so in-house, for me, my favorite thing is that you can kind of dig in and get some roots. And at least for my personality, I enjoy doing that, like getting more depth into the product I'm supporting. It helps me feel like I'm being a better lawyer when I'm like, well, I know what kind of warranty we want to do. I know what the important things are for us when we're performing this service. So I can better negotiate the indemnity and go, oh, you know what, I can give you on that because it actually doesn't matter all that much to us. So, but we're going to need this, as opposed to just going, here's the best warranty that protects us, slam it out there and fight for it because you don't even really know what the service team needs or something like that. So I've enjoyed that the most, getting to know that, and then also feeling like you're part of the team. So when a project completes, you're like, I've just bettered the company. And I'm part of that company. And so there's definitely a fulfillment that comes with that. I feel like that I didn't quite have in the law firm work I did.
Okay. And then if you don't feel uncomfortable answering, just the least favorite thing. And again, this is just kind of over your career generally.
Yeah. So I guess the least favorite, and it's not a day-to-day thing, but you're working for one company and things can change, that you have no control over, right? I mean, I guess it can happen in a law firm as well, that you lose a big client or something like that, and that could happen. But I've worked at one company where it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but they decided that the group I supported, they wanted it in a different subsidiary, and so they just announced, I had no say in it. I shouldn't have, but they moved it to this other subsidiary that was actually focused across, the United States in a different state. And they're like, well, it actually would be best if you were there now too. And so like you kind of lose some control over that to some extent, depending on what you're in. And then obviously the company too can be like, we're struggling, and things happen that you really don't have control over. So, I mean, I think it's that, like, it's a little bit of an unknown. You can go someplace, it can be doing great. They can choose to sell a part of the business or take it in a different route, and it could take it somewhere where they have to, sell the company and something happens. So there's a bit of an unknown there. So I know whenever I in the past have like interviewed for jobs, it ends up being that I like look at the strength of the company and go, well, what are they doing? Like, what's their financial strength? I would hate to go there and then lose a job, in a year or two. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened, but that's something to think about.
Excellent points. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.